Pastor Jackson, we're talking about Moses.
Yeah. Well, I think Moses, the heaviest lift of his life was the last season. You know, he had a remarkable beginning with the faith of parents, grew up in Pharaoh's palace, then in a kind of he's torqued. You would be. You're denying your heritage. He kills an Egyptian. He flees as a fugitive, seems to forfeit everything he was given, gets a whole good life going in the desert, then he has this burning bush thing. And he's a very reluctant recruit. I don't want to go. Send somebody else. To the point that God gets mad at him, and he engages. And he doesn't have an easy day from then until he goes to heaven. And in the midst of the assignment, God disciplines him. You can't go into the promised land. So we've got this sloppy opinion of God that he's like a big teddy bear. And when I read it, he's a lot more like a great coach or a personal trainer. He has expectations and aspirations for us that we have beyond ourselves. And he asks more from us than we would do without his engagement. Don't think of going to church as if you're giving God his marker for the week. Invite God into your life, and he'll make your life better if you're a baker, a butcher, or a candlestick maker. We need some excellence in our lives again. I'm tired of mediocrity reigning.
So I don't know your theology. I really don't care. But everything you're saying I agree with. And it's at odds with some people's theology who I like, who are too next world focused, in the sense where, and again, we should be next world focused. Yeah. But it could get too much where they say, this world doesn't matter. You don't have duties. Just be ready to be zapped up. And do you see that can be a little bit of an issue?
It's an escapist theology.
It is, yes.
Because you don't have to engage. It's easy to look at the world around you and say it's the end of the world.
I hear it all the time.
You can do that you could have done it when they're bombing London. You could have said it's the end of the world. If you lived in Rwanda when 1 million people are murdered in 90 days, it'd have been easy to say it's the end of the world. I don't know that it's the end of the world, but I can tell you this, if the church doesn't engage, it's the end of an empire. We better find our place and stand in it with the determination of a generation that won't yield.
And the escape, again, I'm not on the planning committee for Jesus' return. I'm on the welcoming committee, so I don't get it. I don't get involved in that. So I have no idea pre-trib, post-trib, pan-trib, it's all going to pan out. People, it drives them nuts when I say that. But I'm very much on what does God want from me. And I learned this from a religious Jew, Dennis Prager, who's also on Salem.
I know Dennis.
And Salem, Salem broadcasts him. He has a great quote, which is, "I'm much more interested in what does God want from me than what I want from God." And it is true that some Christians, not all, they look at God as a celestial butler. God, can I have health, wealth, happiness, better stock market, no longer to be sick? But being a Christian and being born with Christ comes with obligations. We don't always talk about that because that sounds like extra work, right?
It is. It's not just obligations. There's a standard of holiness. The Bible is a revelation. It tells us there is a God, that he can be known, and that if we choose to, we could participate in his eternal kingdom, which is the most amazing invitation that'll ever be put before a human being. But we don't do it on a menu or a smorgasbord. We'll either submit to his character. People say, well, I don't like that God, or God's not fair. Well, duly noted, but it's really not relevant. I don't like the fact that when I put my head under the water, I can't breathe. But those are the principles. So I have to adjust to it. And it's time to stop raging against God's poor job performance and decide we're going to participate with what he's doing in the earth, because he's doing something. I think you're a part of that. I watch the impact you're having in our nation and for the values you're standing up for. Most of the true renewals, changes that have come through the history of the church did not begin in the midst of the organized church. They began on the periphery.
Amen.
And I think we're watching that again. It's why I'm happy to stand next to you and cheer and add momentum, because I believe God's moving in the midst of all the things you're doing.
Thank you. It is it's a trying moment for sure, because we have physical limitations, which is very humbling. And at 30, you feel it more than at 20. I know you're going to laugh.
Yeah,
but it's a real thing,
I'm
though.
going to cry for you now.
It's a real thing. I'm just being honest. It's that you slow down a little bit at 30, but not. Everyone says, okay, yeah, Charlie. But my slowdown is not like anyone else. Final thing, 45 seconds. If a Christian out there says, Pastor, I don't know if I can vote for Trump, what is your opinion on that? Because that is the elephant in the room.
It is. And we have, in this case, we have a binary choice. And to not vote is just an expression of cowardice. So take that off the table. I don't think that's a legitimate option. We have to engage in the process. And so now we have this binary choice, and it's really, it's as distinctive choice as any time in my lifetime, and that's quite a while. And so you sort through the platforms of those two parties, if you can find one for Kamala, and then you choose which most represents a biblical worldview for you. It's not perfect. If you didn't go to church until you found a perfect pastor and a perfect church, you'd never go to church. So if you don't vote until you find a perfect candidate, you're never going to vote.
Well said.
Stop it. It's cowardice. We got to participate.
I totally agree.